The Way to Rainy Mountain by N. Scott Mahmoody. This recording is of the preface, the prologue, and the introduction. The preface can be found on page Roman numeral 9. Preface. The Way to Rainy Mountain was first published 25 years ago. One should not be surprised, I suppose, that it has remained vital and immediate, for that is the nature of story. And this is particularly true of the oral tradition, which exists in a dimension of timelessness. I was first told these stories by my father when I was a child. I do not know how long they had existed before I heard them. They seem to proceed from a place of origin as old as the earth. The stories in The Way to Rainy Mountain are told in three voices. The first voice is the voice of my father, the ancestral voice, and the voice of the Kiowa oral tradition. The second is the voice of historical commentary, and the third is that of a personal reminiscence, my own voice. There is a turning and returning of myth, history, and memoir throughout, a narrative wheel that is as sacred as language itself. It is appropriate that these discrete voices should be heard, that they should be read aloud, that they should remain, as they have always remained, alive at the level of the human voice. And that level, their being, is whole and essential. In the beginning was the Word, and it was spoken. The Way to Rainy Mountain is dedicated to my parents, whose spirit informs it. My mother lived easily and well in the element of language. Her inspiration was indispensable to the expression of my own spirit. My father told the stories, he drew the illustrations, and he was true to the journey. He was a man who bore dreams to me and to the world. Again I make the dedication, and I make it in wonder, in faith, and in love. N. Scott Mahmoody. The Way to Rainy Mountain. Headwaters. Noon in the intermountain plain. There is scant telling of the marsh. A log, hollow and weather-stained, an insect at the mouth, and moss. Yet waters rise against the roots, stand brimming to the stalks. What moves? What moves on this archaic force was wild and welling at the source. Prologue, page 3. The journey began one day long ago on the edge of the northern plains. It was carried on over a course of many generations and many hundreds of miles. In the end, there were many things to remember, to dwell upon, and talk about. You know, everything had to begin. For the Kiowas, the beginning was a struggle for existence in the bleak northern mountains. It was there, they say, that they entered the world through a hollow log. The end, too, was a struggle, and it was lost. The young plains culture of the Kiowas withered and died like grass that is burned in the prairie wind. There came a day like destiny. In every direction, as far as the eye could see, carrion lay out in the land. The buffalo was the animal representation of the sun, the essential and sacrificial victim of the sun dance. When the wild herds were destroyed, so too was the will of the Kiowa people. There was nothing to sustain them in spirit. But these are idle recollections, the mean and ordinary agonies of human history. The interim was a time of great adventure and nobility and fulfillment. Taimei came to the Kiowas in a vision born of suffering and despair. "Take me with you," Taimei said, "and I will give you whatever you want." And it was so. The great adventure of the Kiowas was a going forth into the heart of the continent. They began a log migration from the headwaters of the Yellowstone River eastward to the Black Hills and south to the Wichita Mountains. Along the way they acquired horses, the religion of plains, a love and possession of the open land. Their nomadic soul was free. In alliance with the Comanches, they held dominion in the southern plains for 100 years. In the course of that long migration, they had come of age as people. They had conceived a good idea of themselves. They had dared to imagine and determine who they were. In one sense, then, the way to Rainy Mountain is preeminently the history of an idea, man's idea of himself, and it has old and essential being in language. The verbal tradition by which it has been preserved has suffered a deterioration in time. What remains in fragmentary mythology, legend, lore, and hearsay, and of course the idea itself, as crucial and complete as it ever was. That is the miracle. The journey herein recalled continues to be made anew each time the miracle comes to mind, for that is particularly the right and responsibility of the imagination. It is a whole journey, intricate with motion and meaning, and it is made with the whole memory, that experience of the mind which is legendary as well as historical, personal as well as cultural. And the journey is an evocation of three things in particular: a landscape that is incomparable, a time that is gone forever, and the human spirit which endures. The imaginative experience and the historical express equally the traditions of man's reality. Finally, then, the journey recalled is, among other things, the revelation of one way in which these traditions are conceived, developed, and interfused in the human mind. There are, on the way to Rainy Mountain, many landmarks, many journeys in the one. From the beginning, the migration of the Kiowas was an expression of human spirit, and that expression is most truly made in terms of wonder and delight. There were many people, and oh, it was beautiful. There was the beginning of the sun dance. It was all for Time, you know, and it was a long time ago.